I didn't expect my first week working at a gym to change anything about my life. I just needed money. That was it. Rent was creeping up, my savings were a joke, and the front desk position at Iron Pulse Fitness came with a free membership and flexible hours. Sounded perfect. What I didn't expect was for the most closed-off trainer in the building to start looking for me after my shifts ended. And definitely not the way he did. The gym smelled like rubber mats, disinfectant spray, and sweat that never fully went away, no matter how hard the staff tried. It was one of those serious gyms. No neon lights, no smoothie bar, just iron, mirrors, and men who looked like they took their protein intake personally. My job was simple. Check people in, smile, wipe counters, pretend I knew what pre-workout supplements actually did. I wore the standard black staff tee, with the logo stretched a little too tight across my chest, mostly because I'd been lifting more since I got hired. Free gym access will do that to you. That's when I first noticed Benjamin. Everyone called him Ben, except no one really talked to him enough to use his name. He was one of the head trainers, late 20s, maybe early 30s, tall in a quiet, solid way, not flashy muscle big, but controlled, dense. The kind of body that came from years of discipline, not Instagram thirst traps. Dark hair, usually pulled back, permanent 5 o'clock shadow, and eyes that never lingered anywhere longer than necessary. People respected him. Clients loved him. Staff kept their distance. He doesn't do small talk. One of the other trainers told me during my first shift. At all. I noticed that quickly. Ben came in, trained clients, cleaned his area, and left. No hanging around, no joking at the desk. No flirting with the regulars, like some of the other trainers did. He barely acknowledged anyone unless it was work-related. Including me, which was fine. Honestly, probably better that way. Except, I started catching things. Little moments that didn't feel accidental. The way his eyes flicked to me when I laughed with a member, then immediately away. How he always chose the squat rack closest to the desk when the gym was half empty. How his jaw tightened when another trainer leaned over the counter a bit too close while talking to me. I told myself I was imagining it. I mean, guys like Benjamin didn't look at guys like me. He gave off that emotionally sealed, straight but complicated energy. The kind of man who kept everything locked down so tightly you'd never know what was going on underneath. Still, there was one night that stuck with me. It was late, almost closing time. The gym was quiet except for the low hum of machines and the dull thud of weights being racked. I was wiping down the counter, half ready to clock out, when Ben finished with his last client. He walked past the desk, nodded once like always, then stopped, turned back. Samuel. I looked up, caught off guard. He'd never said my name before, my full name. Yeah? You're new here, he said. Flat tone, not a question. Yeah. Couple weeks. He nodded slowly like he was filing the information away. His eyes flicked to the clock behind me. You're usually scheduled late. Most nights. Another pause. Longer this time. The air felt heavier, charged, but quiet. Be careful locking up, he said finally. Back door sticks sometimes, I blinked. Oh, thanks. He held my gaze for half a second longer than necessary, then turned and walked toward the locker rooms. That should have been it, just a normal, slightly awkward interaction. But as I grabbed my bag and headed out 15 minutes later, the parking lot nearly empty, I realized something strange. Benjamin's car was still there, engine off, lights dark, and when I pulled my door open, I felt it. That unmistakable sensation of being watched. I glanced over. Ben was sitting in his car, hands resting on the steering wheel, head turned just enough that I knew, without a doubt, he was looking straight at me. Our eyes met. He didn't look away. Neither did I, and that was the moment I understood something had already started, whether either of us was ready for it or not. I told myself not to overthink it. That was my first mistake. The drive home felt longer than usual, my mind replaying the image, not in a creepy way, not even in an obvious way. It was controlled, intentional, like he'd made a decision and was seeing it through. By the time I got back to my apartment, my chest still felt tight. I barely slept. The next day at the gym, I was hyper aware of everything. Every sound, every reflection in the mirrors. Every time the front door opened, I looked up without meaning to. Benjamin didn't show up until late afternoon. When he did, it was like the temperature in the room shifted. Not dramatically. No one else seemed to notice, but I did. He walked in wearing a sleeveless hoodie this time, hood down, headphones in, jaw set like usual. Except this time, when he passed the desk, he didn't just nod. "Hey," he said casual. Quiet. My heart jumped like an idiot. "Hey." That was it. He kept walking. No staring, no lingering, just that. And somehow, that was worse. Over the next few days, it became a pattern. Small acknowledgments, a brief comment about the music playing, a question about my schedule. Nothing personal, nothing that crossed a line. But the tension? That only grew. I started noticing how often he was around when my shifts ended. Not hovering, just nearby, stretching, cleaning equipment he'd already wiped down, checking his phone, then glancing up when I moved. Still, he never made a move. Until Friday nights were chaos. Post-work crowd, packed floor, people grunting like they were in labor. By the time we locked the doors, my legs ached and my voice was hoarse from saying, "Have a good night," 50 times. I was shutting down the computer when Benjamin approached the desk. Up close, he smelled like clean sweat and something woodsy. Soap, maybe. His presence was overwhelming in that quiet, grounded way. "You heading out?" he asked. "Yeah, just about done." He hesitated. I could actually see him hesitate. His fingers flexed once at his side. "Can I walk you to your car?" The question landed heavy between us. I searched his face for a joke. There wasn't one. "Sure," I said, my voice a little too quick. We stepped outside together, the night air cool against my skin. The parking lot was dim, mostly empty, our footsteps echoing. Neither of us spoke for a few seconds. "I don't usually do this," he said finally. I glanced at him. "Do what?" "Mix work with anything," he exhaled through his nose. "But you've been distracting me." My pulse spiked. "Distracting how?" He stopped walking. I did too. Benjamin turned to face me fully now, close enough that I could feel the heat from his body. His eyes were dark, serious, searching my face like he was bracing for something. "I don't flirt," he said. "I don't play games. And I don't chase people who aren't interested." I swallowed. "Okay, but I've been watching you," he continued, voice low. "And I need to know if this is just in my head." My heart was pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. "So I'm gonna ask you something," he said. "And if the answer's no, I drop it. Completely." I nodded, barely breathing. "Are you into men?" The world narrowed to that moment. "Yes," I said. His jaw tightened, not with disappointment, but relief. "And me?" he asked quietly. I didn't hesitate this time. "Yeah." That was all it took. Benjamin stepped closer, slow and deliberate, giving me time to pull away. I didn't. His hand came up, warm and firm against my jaw, thumb brushing my cheek like he'd imagined doing it before. When he kissed me, it wasn't rushed or rough. It was controlled, deep, like he was pouring weeks of restraint into one moment. I melted. The parking lot disappeared. The gym disappeared. There was just him, his mouth, his breath, the way his other hand settled at my waist like it belonged there. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. "Good," he murmured. "Because I've been holding back." I smiled, breathless. "Yeah?" He smirked, just barely. "Come over tomorrow." Not a question. And somehow, that made my knees weak. I barely slept that night. Not because I was tired, but because every time I closed my eyes, I felt him again. Benjamin's hand at my jaw. The weight of his presence. The way he looked at me like it meant something. Not like a careless mistake or a moment that didn't matter. When I woke up Saturday morning, I checked my phone like an idiot, half expecting a message that would undo everything. There was one text. "Benjamin tonight. 7. Bring whatever you want. I'll cook." I stared at it for a full minute before replying. "Me. I'll be there. Simple. Direct." Very him. His place was only 10 minutes from mine, tucked into a quiet apartment complex that looked more grown man with his life together than I was used to. I stood outside his door at exactly 6:59, suddenly nervous in a way I hadn't been since my first date with a guy years ago. The door opened almost immediately. Benjamin was barefoot, wearing a plain gray t-shirt and black joggers. No gym armor, no trainer persona, just him. "Hey," he said. "Hey." He stepped aside to let me in, his hand briefly touching my lower back as I passed. That tiny contact sent a jolt straight through me. The apartment was clean but lived in. Dark furniture, minimal decor, everything intentional, just like him. Something was simmering on the stove, the air warm with the smell of garlic and herbs. "You cook?" I asked. "I unwind by cooking," he said. "Or lifting. Depends on the day." I smiled. "Figures." Dinner was easy. Surprisingly easy. We sat at his small kitchen table, talking about work, clients, how I ended up at the gym. He listened closely, really listened, his eyes steady on me, no phone in sight. At one point, I caught him watching me instead of eating. "What?" I asked. "You're different outside the gym," he said. "Good different, or—" He smirked faintly. "Better." After we ate, he took our plates to the sink, then turned to me, leaning back against the counter. "You nervous?" he asked. I laughed softly. "A little." "Good," he said. "Means you're taking this seriously." That word, "this," hung between us. He stepped closer, slow again, always giving me space to choose. When his hands settled on my waist this time, it felt familiar already, like something my body had been waiting for. The kiss that followed was deeper than the first. Less restrained. Still not rushed. His thumb brushed under my shirt absent-mindedly, like he wasn't even thinking about it. I broke the kiss just long enough to breathe. "You're really controlled," I murmured. He exhaled a quiet laugh. "You have no idea." We moved to the couch, sitting close enough that our thighs pressed together. No rush. No stripping clothes, just heat and closeness and the slow unraveling of tension that had been building for weeks. At one point, his forehead rested against mine again. "I don't do casual," he said quietly. "I don't either." His grip tightened slightly, like he needed to hear that. "Good," he said. "Because once I let someone in, I don't half-ass it." Something in my chest shifted. This wasn't just attraction. This was intention. And as I leaned into him, knowing full well things were only going to get more complicated, especially at work, I realized something else too. Benjamin hadn't just been looking for me after my shifts. He'd been waiting for me to be ready. Sunday morning came quietly. No dramatic wake-up, no tangled sheets cliché. Just soft light slipping through Benjamin's blinds and the steady rhythm of his breathing beside me on the couch, where we'd eventually fallen asleep sometime after midnight. I lay there for a moment, not moving, just listening. It felt safe. Unexpectedly so. Benjamin stirred first. One arm tightened around me, instinctive, like his body reacted before his mind caught up. When he opened his eyes and realized where he was, where I was, his expression softened instead of pulling away. "Morning," he said, voice low and rough. "Morning." He didn't let go. That alone told me more than words could have. We made coffee together, moving around each other in the small kitchen like we'd done it before. I noticed how he always made space for me, without stepping back completely. How his hand occasionally brushed mine, never accidental, never overdone. "So," I said, leaning against the counter, "what happens now?" He looked at me for a long second, mug in his hands. "Now?" he repeated. "We go slow, we're honest, and we don't pretend this didn't happen when we're at work." That last part made my stomach flip. "You sure about that?" "I don't hide," he said simply. "I just don't broadcast." I nodded. That felt fair. Very him. When he walked me to the door later, he paused before opening it. "You working tonight?" he asked. "Yeah, closing shift." He nodded once. "I'll be there." The gym felt different that evening. Not louder, not busier, just charged. Benjamin kept things professional. So did I. No touching. No long looks. But there was an awareness between us that made every shared glance hit harder than any kiss. When my shift finally ended and I shut down the desk, I felt him behind me before I heard him. "You good?" he asked. I smiled. "Yeah." We walked out together again, side by side this time. As we reached our cars, he stopped me with a hand on my arm. "I don't know where this goes," he said quietly, "but I'm not walking away from it." I met his eyes, steady. "Neither am I." His thumb brushed my wrist once, grounding, reassuring. "Good," he said, because I've spent too long keeping everything locked up. He opened his car door, then paused. "And Samuel? Yeah?" A rare, genuine smile crossed his face. "I'm glad it was you." I stood there watching him drive away, heart full in a way that surprised me. I'd taken a job at a gym for a paycheck. I hadn't expected to find someone who looked at me like I was worth the risk. If someone had told me a month ago that my life would start orbiting around gym schedules and stolen glances, I would have laughed. But that's exactly what happened. Benjamin and I didn't announce anything. We didn't need to. Things just shifted. We arrived together sometimes, left together more often. We kept a respectful distance on the floor, but the connection was there. Quiet, steady, impossible to miss if you knew what to look for. And people did start to notice. "You and Ben seem friendly," one of the trainers said one night, eyebrows raised. I just smiled. "He's not as scary as he looks." That earned a laugh, but I caught Benjamin watching from across the gym, a corner of his mouth twitching like he was fighting a smile. Outside of work, things deepened. He wasn't loud with affection, but he was consistent. Texts every morning, checking in after my shifts, cooking for me when I was too tired to think. He remembered small things. How I liked my coffee, the fact that leg day made me grumpy, the song I always hummed without realizing it. One night, sprawled on his couch, I finally asked the question that had been sitting heavy in my chest. "You ever been with a guy before me?" He didn't answer right away. "Yes," he said eventually. "A long time ago." "Why didn't it last?" He stared at the ceiling. "Because I wasn't honest. Not with him, not with myself." I turned onto my side, studying his face. "And now?" "Now I am," he said. That's the difference. Something about that scared me and grounded me at the same time. The real test came sooner than I expected. One evening, the gym manager called us both into his office. Nothing dramatic, just scheduling changes. But the air felt tight. I could feel Benjamin beside me, solid and calm, like an anchor. As we left, the manager gave us a long look. "Just remember," he said casually, "professional boundaries matter." Benjamin nodded. "Always." Outside, I let out the breath I'd been holding. That was uncomfortable. He stopped, turned to me. "You okay?" "Yeah. Just thinking." He reached out, squeezing my hand once before letting go. "We'll handle it. Together." Together. That word hit harder than any kiss. Later that night, lying next to him, I realized something important. Benjamin wasn't just the closed-off trainer who surprised me by looking my way. He was someone choosing me, carefully, deliberately, without fear. And for the first time in a long while, I wasn't bracing for the moment everything fell apart. I was letting myself believe this might actually last. The first crack didn't come from jealousy, it came from silence. Benjamin had warned me, without really saying it, that when things got heavy, not away, just quiet, focused, like he handled pressure by tightening everything inside himself. I didn't realize how much that would test me until it actually happened. It started with a canceled dinner, then a late reply, then a whole day where I only got a short, "Busy, talk later." Nothing dramatic, nothing wrong on the surface, but my chest recognized the pattern before my brain did. At the gym, he was the same as always. Professional, composed, calm, maybe too calm. When our eyes met across the floor, there was something different there. Not distance. Restraint. After closing one night, I didn't wait for him to make the first move. "Walk with me?" I asked. He nodded immediately. We didn't go to the parking lot this time. Instead, we circled the block behind the gym, the city quiet, streetlights humming overhead. "You're pulling back," I said finally. He didn't deny it. "I'm under a lot of pressure," he said. "Work stuff. Old stuff." "Okay," I replied, "but shutting me out isn't handling it." He stopped walking, turned to face me. "I'm not shutting you out," he said carefully. "I'm trying not to drag you into my mess." I crossed my arms, more hurt than angry. "You don't get to decide that alone." That landed. Benjamin exhaled slowly, running a hand over his face. For the first time since I'd known him, he looked tired. Not physically, but emotionally. I spent years being the guy who didn't need anyone, he said. Who kept things clean, controlled. Letting you in already changed that. And? I asked softly. And part of me is scared that if I lean too hard on this, I'll lose it. I stepped closer, not touching him yet, just there. You won't lose me by being honest, I said. You will if you disappear every time it gets hard. He looked at me then, really looked at me. I don't know how to do this perfectly, he admitted. I'm not asking for perfect, I said. I'm asking for present. There was a long pause. Then Benjamin nodded. Okay, he said. Then here's the truth. He told me about the previous relationship he'd barely mentioned. How it ended because he chose safety over vulnerability. How he'd promised himself he'd never put someone else in a position where his silence hurt them again. And yet, he added quietly, here we are. I reached for his hand this time. He let me. We're not repeating that, I said. We're doing it differently. His fingers tightened around mine. Yeah, he said, we are. That night, nothing dramatic happened. No grand declarations. No sudden fixes. Just two men standing under a flickering streetlight, choosing, consciously, to keep showing up. And for the first time, I saw it clearly. Benjamin wasn't closed off because he didn't feel deeply. He was closed off because he did. Things didn't magically become easy after that conversation, but they became real. Benjamin didn't suddenly turn into someone who overshared or poured his heart out every night. That was never who he was. What changed was simpler and stronger. He stayed. When work got overwhelming, he told me. When he needed space, he said so instead of disappearing. And when he showed up, he did it fully. Present, grounded, intentional. So did I. A few weeks later, something small happened that told me everything I needed to know. It was another late night at the gym. I was finishing up, tired, mentally fried, ready to collapse. Benjamin had already changed, hoodie on, bag over his shoulder. As I locked the door, he waited instead of heading to his car. You coming? He asked. I hesitated. I'm exhausted. Good, he said. So am I. We didn't go out. We didn't do anything special. We stopped by a 24-hour diner, slid into a cracked vinyl booth, and ordered greasy food neither of us should have been eating. Halfway through my fries, I caught him watching me. What? I asked. This, he said. This is what I wanted before. I just didn't know how to keep it. I reached across the table without thinking, my fingers brushing his. He didn't pull away. A few days after that, the gym manager pulled me aside. I'm moving you to mornings, he said. Different pace, more responsibility. I knew what he was really saying. I told Benjamin that night. He listened quietly, then nodded. Probably smart. You okay with it? I asked. He met my eyes. I'm not with you because we work together. That mattered more than he probably realized. Months passed. The tension people once whispered about faded into something steadier. Something obvious, but unproblematic. Benjamin and I became normal, the good kind. The kind built on routines and trust and quiet moments that didn't need witnesses. One night, lying beside him, his arm heavy and warm around my shoulders, I thought back to my first week at the gym, to the closed-off trainer who barely spoke, to the way he watched me from his car, to the risk he took just by asking one question. And I smiled because I hadn't just gotten a job at a gym. I'd met a man who chose growth over fear, presence over control, and me, fully, intentionally, without hiding. And that was more than I ever expected when I clocked in on day